The NBA playoff bracket is set. Who are the big winners and losers? What are we most excited for with the NBA playoffs? Plus, should the Lakers tank a play-in game? And some news out of Detroit, as well as Grayson Allen, some offseason stuff getting already started. The regular season is over. The playoffs are here on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA, your daily source for all things NBA from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining. /Locked On NBA. Glad to have you with us, and thanks for being an everydayer. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I'll admit it, I got a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by David Ramil. He's co-host of Locked On Heat. I'm over on Locked On Nuggets. The NBA playoffs are here. Most of the bracket is set. We still have to get through the play-in tournament games, which we'll talk about in the second segment, at least Tuesday's games. And we'll get to some off-season news that's already started happening as the regular season is over. It is that time for firings and hirings and money to be passed around. So we'll get to that in the last segment. But we start, David, with the NBA playoff bracket. Following the results of Sunday, which was a lot of blowouts, but a lot of things did not work out the way that necessarily would have been chalk. In the Eastern Conference, the New York Knicks, surprisingly, wind up with the number 2 seed because they actually wanted to win a game, unlike the Cleveland Cavaliers, who decided that they very much did not. The Milwaukee Bucks lose to the Orlando Magic, got absolutely stomped by a very impressive showing from Orlando. The Bucks fall to 3. They'll face the Pacers. The Knicks will face the winner of the 2-7 matchup in the Eastern Conference between your Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. And in the 4-5, the Cleveland Cavaliers will take on the Orlando Magic in a series that might not be shown on TV at all. You might have to get the Roku channel. That one might get on True TV, possibly Discovery. Is there like a Max offshoot that they'll put it on? No one is going to see that series. I will enjoy it. I'm very excited about Cavs Magic. In the Western Conference, the Denver Nuggets, after losing to the Spurs to blow their shot the 1 seed on Friday night, they wind up with a 2 seed as they will face the winner of the Pelicans versus Lakers. We'll talk about that in the second segment. The 3 seed will be the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the worst possible matchup for them in the Phoenix Suns. And we already knew that the Clippers are going to take on the Mavericks in the 4-5. All right, so we have not the entire playoff bracket, but we do have counting the play-in, we have all the matchups kind of in vision. Who do you think were the big winners and losers from Sunday's action?
I think the Bucks, actually. I think the Pacers are an unfavorable matchup for them. So the fact that they got stomped by Orlando, they had a chance to take on a different team. I don't know. It might have necessarily worked out differently. And again, so much of it just kind of depends on Giannis Antetokounmpo's health, etc. So there's a lot to talk about in that series, but I don't know that the Pacers is the ideal matchup for a team like the Bucks, but it's going to be an interesting one. I don't know. As far as general winners are concerned, I think the Pelicans too. I think the fact that they got stopped by the Lakers and now have to face them again in another matchup there. That's just for the right to lose to the Denver Nuggets anyway. Something that we'll talk about a little bit later. I don't know. I didn't really get a sense of winners and or losers from yesterday. There was just so much activity with all 30 teams playing and so much hanging in the balance. Is there a winner or loser that you're particularly looking at?
Yeah, so I think the Pacers I think were a big winner. They got the win. They avoided the play-in tournament. They got the 6th spot versus a Bucks team that they've had the number of. That's the team that I think that Indiana wanted. So while you're like the Bucks might have been a loser, I think the Pacers were a big winner. I think they're in a better spot versus them than some of the other teams. The Cavs are a loser just for their loser behavior because they had a huge lead and decided to sit they already decided to sit Mitchell and Garland, then pulled everyone very openly, very transparently, because they did not want to end up in the 2 seed and have to face the Sixers and Heat. You're scared of a play-in team. I know that the Sixers have Joel Embiid. I would pick the Sixers to beat the Cavs in that series, but face the challenge, Cleveland. the basketball gods will not reward you. They will not save you for this. Also, if you do get past Orlando, hey, congratulations, you avoided the Sixers and Heat. Now you get Boston in the next round. What are you doing? I think the biggest loser of all, though, on Sunday was the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Mm-hmm.
They had such a good shot at getting the 1 seed. They had so many things go their way. Thunder won, Nuggets won, which would have meant that if they gotten the win, they would have been the 1 seed, which would have been ideal. They might have gotten the Pelicans. They would match up well with the Warriors. Instead, they fall to 3, and they get this same Suns team that has had their number. And if they win, now they don't have home court versus the Denver Nuggets in the second round. They got to go for a game 1 and a game 7 if Denver were to advance in altitude. It's a nightmare for a Wolves team that's had such a great season. That ending was really bad for them, I thought.
That's a good point. Yeah, I have to agree with that one. That Suns Wolves matchup, I know we're going to talk about individual series and things like that in a second, but that is such an exciting one to me. I am really looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Well, let's do that right now. Tell me your the matchups that you're most excited about that we know of right now.
I'm excluding all the potential play-in matchups because if it's New York Miami or New York Philadelphia or Boston Miami, obviously that changes things a little bit from my perspective. But as far as the matchups that are currently set, I'm looking forward to that Indiana Milwaukee matchup. Maybe not as much as the Suns Wolves one, because that to me are just like there's so many different storylines, so many different stars, so many different changes in terms of like just the process and the way these teams are built and everything else. The defensive acumen of that Minnesota team in terms of giving up a lot of mid-range shots to a team that thrives in the mid-range. So that's really exciting to see how these different, contrasts in style would wind up, potentially ending a Wolves season that, as you just pointed out, was really, really exciting. Other than that, I think we talked about it last week. Clips and Mavericks, that's a really good series as well. I kind of like them all. I'm gonna be honest with you. Maybe it's just me as a basketball fan in general, but I'm looking forward to seeing all these potential matchups. How about you?
Can you be glued to Cavaliers Magic? Are you gonna be?
I think it's exciting. I think it really is. I mean, look, to see Jalen Suggs try to guard Donovan Mitchell, maybe that's such a very niche matchup for somebody in basketball media, but that's like an exciting one for me.
Get me in. I want Dean Wade versus Franz Wagner. I'm a sicko. Let's get it. The one I'm most excited about is honestly Pacers Bucks. Everyone's gonna say Clippers Mavs. I'm gonna say Pacers Bucks. I really like this Pacers team. I've already I think the Pacers are gonna. I'll go ahead and say it. I think the Pacers are gonna beat the Bucks.
Yes,
I'm predicting that right now. I can be wrong. The Bucks can win. The Bucks can win comfortably. Maybe they got a gear. I don't like this matchup at all for them. I just think the Pacers match up extremely well for them. The Cavaliers are heavy favorites because they won a lot more games. The thing is, the Pacers were one of the best teams in the league versus really good teams. They are very good versus really good teams, especially really good offensive teams. That's where Indiana shines. You need a really good defense to slow them down and get them away from their game. That's not Milwaukee. It's especially not Milwaukee without Giannis. I think the Bucks are in real danger here. I think the Pacers are a really fascinating team. I'm excited to see Tyrese Halliburton in a playoff environment. Maybe he'll fail. Maybe he'll thrive. We'll see. I love that matchup. Clips Mavs has to be on the list, though. Yeah, I did the research on it today, and basically my outcome after looking over a lot of film and a lot of numbers, David, my kind of outcome on predicting that series is shrug. I don't know. I have no idea. You can't take anything from the regular season matchups because the Mavericks did not have the team that they have now. And it's such a big differentiator in terms of how they play, who they have available, the matchups. It's going to be fascinating to see who guards who. It's going to be fascinating to see whether the Clippers try and switch and wear out Luka that way, whether they try and put 2 on, and does that open up Kyrie? It's a tactical, I think, a really great tactical matchup, and should be really interesting to watch. The other one that I think I actually really like beyond that one, Wolves Suns is interesting, but I'll say this: I'm actually really excited for whoever the 2-7 in the East is going to be, whether it's Sixers Heat or Knicks Sixers or Knicks Heat. That matchup's really good. I think Jalen Brunson is a tough matchup. Tom Thibodeau has a bad record as an underdog in playoff series, but he's very good when he has a fighting chance. And I actually think that this coaching matchup would be really good. Would I give Spo the edge? Yes. Would I give Nick Nurse the edge? Yes. But I still think it's going to be a really competitive series. That's going to be a fascinating one to watch. Honestly, the series I'm not interested in. The only one is really Boston. I'm just like, yeah, they're going to they're going to jump up. And I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's Miami. My thing with Miami, I will say this really quickly. If Miami gets the 8th seed, it's all on game 1. The Heat have to steal game 1. And if they do, backsides are going to get tight in Boston. But if not, then I think Miami's going to be like, yeah, we're going to do it again. Oh, we lost by 30. Oh, no, we're a play-in team. Ruh-roh. We'll see how it shakes out. We'll have more on it all throughout the week here on Locked On NBA. Up next, we'll talk about the play-in tournament games, especially in the Western Conference. We'll hit on those. Plus, should the Lakers tank a play-in game? We'll talk about that next on Locked On NBA. Right now, I want to tell you about BetterHelp and why it's so important for you to be able to seek out the help that you need. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off of our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So today, I want to say about how I really feel about something. You might even be thinking about the same thing this week. Today, it's all about time for me. That's my thing, is like I'm trying to figure out I've got so many things on my plate about the playoffs this week. My head's spinning. And one of the things that therapy really helps with is centering yourself so that you can approach these things. It helps you with keeping your head clear so you're not as overloaded with everything. And that's why therapy is so important. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll be right back on Locked On NBA. Back here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for joining us. Matt Moore alongside David Ramil. We're recording this on Monday in the afternoon. So knock on all of the wood. We're hoping that nothing crazy happens overnight on Monday leading into Tuesday.
In the NBA? Something crazy
happening
in the NBA?
We'll get to some offseason news here in the next segment that could foreshadow some movement, but we'll talk about that up next on the show. Right now, let's talk about the play-in tournament. So on Tuesday, the Los Angeles Lakers take on the New Orleans Pelicans. Lakers have smashed the Pelicans in most spots this season. They destroyed them in the in-season tournament game in Vegas. They annihilated them yesterday. That game was over in about 6 minutes. Anthony Davis tweaked his back. He's got some back tightness, but he did say he would absolutely play in Tuesday's game. The question that's kind of being asked around, and people are, I think, overreacting in terms of being like, no, that's stupid, that's ridiculous, is the idea of whether or not the Lakers should tank this game. The winner of this game will play the Denver Nuggets in the 2 seed. So if the Lakers do in fact beat the Pelicans, they have to then travel to Denver this weekend on Saturday for a game against Denver. Denver has won 8 in a row versus the Lakers. They swept them in last year's playoffs. They have not lost to them this season. Not a great matchup for the Lakers. David, I have a take, but I want to get your thoughts on it. What do you think about the idea of the Lakers potentially risking missing the playoffs entirely by not winning on purpose in Tuesday's game versus the Pelicans?
To me, I just can't see LeBron at this stage in his career embracing that kind of thing. Like we're talking about potentially the greatest NBA player of all time. And so much of what has defined him, aside from on-court excellence and everything he's done off the court as well, is using all these sorts of perceived agendas and slights to motivate him. And he'll be happy to tell all of us about all these things that have motivated him. Like when, he's been talking about people doubting him for 3 seasons now, when I don't think anybody's ever actually doubted him, but he uses these kinds of things as motivation. So to propose the idea of, again, a great player like LeBron James, and for him to say, you know what, let's kind of duck Denver in the hopes that we get a different matchup against Oklahoma City. I just don't see that happening. That doesn't mean that they can't lose the game against the Pelicans outright, but I don't see them tanking it. And as far as if they're able to beat New Orleans and advance to take on Denver, I think he would love that matchup. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win that one either, but I think he would like to be able, as we're seeing the sunset of his career brighter than ever, like I think he would love to have a kind of another, legendary defining postseason series against the MVP and everything else that entails. So I don't think he's ducking the smoke in terms of a matchup against Denver. What's your take on this? Still muted.
Sorry, I think there's what he'll say, and I think there's what he might want to do. I think ultimately they'll be like, no, like let's just go ahead and win. We can't risk it. This is my thought process on it. Okay. There are teams that can really benefit from a playoff run. The Pacers can get smashed in round 2 by the Knicks. That's fine. Like, I think that might be okay in that series. But just winning versus the Bucks means, hey, we won a playoff series and we won it versus a good team that had the structure, at least, of a team that won the title 3 years ago. Like, we've proven that we can compete in the playoffs. If you're the Thunder, making the conference finals means a lot. It's like, hey, you're already here. You are one series away from making the finals, right? Then there are teams where it is all or nothing. The Phoenix Suns should not be like, hey, we made the second round. No, like, you were built to win a title.
Right.
You traded for Bradley Beal. You're all in. You traded for Kevin Durant, and then you traded for Bradley Beal. You were all in on winning a title. Look at your salary. Look at your long-term future. You have to win now. The Lakers have to win now. That's who they are. Okay? LeBron's 39. He's slowing down. You have what? If they get a superstar this summer, they can make another run next year. And then that's probably it for LeBron. It's all or nothing. Is there a meaningful difference between losing in the first round and missing the playoffs entirely? Now, you could say, like, yeah, but the best argument against it for me is like, look, you can't win the title if you miss the playoffs. If you get in, who knows? Injuries, bad luck, clutch games, whatever. Sports happens, right? And that's a very good argument. That to me is like a very good argument for it. It depends on what you think your chances against the Nuggets are. If you as a team, if you're the Lakers and you're like, no, we can beat this team. It's 50-50. We can beat them. Or 40-60. Okay? That makes sense. Win the playing game. If it's 30-70, okay. Yeah, even then, 30-70, you got a 1 in 3 chance of beating the Nuggets. If you are in a place where you're like, I think we have a less than 10% chance of beating Denver, we can't beat that team fully healthy. You got to put that off as long as possible. The Nuggets are 7-11 versus teams over 500 when any of their starters are out. They will not be out for game 1. They will not be out to start the series. Maybe that happens, right? And that changes things. That's the sports happen side of it. But I do think it's like worth asking the question for the Lakers specifically, because the Lakers need to maximize every opportunity to not make the playoffs, not to win a series, not to win 2 series, not to win the conference. They need to win the title. And if that's your approach, you do everything that it takes to get there. Now, yes, like, you can lose this game and then Steph hits 15 threes and you lose and you miss the playoffs. And that's what happens. And that's very disappointing and that sucks. But it just depends on where you put your chances are. Now, I'll also say this.
You think LeBron as a competitor is going to look at a series matchup against Denver and say, we have no chance of beating them?
His comments about it are really interesting. He does not act like we're right there. Like, Lakers fans felt that way last year, and LeBron looks at this and is like,
not really.
He's talked about like what he thinks of Yoke, and so I think it's tough. Like, if he's got it, here's the thing: if he's got to play him, will he go at him? Yes. Will he feel like he can win? Yes, because he's LeBron. But he's also a very tactical guy. Warriors Kings, the other game on Tuesday night.
Is it?
Yep. Yeah, there's another conference outside of the East, David. Warriors Kings on Tuesday night. The Herter and Monk injuries really hurt here. I have not really been like, oh, the Kings are screwed. I've been like, yeah, I don't know. They still got a lot of talent. It hurts in this matchup. Demonis loses his minutes big time versus the Warriors, and Herter and Monk won theirs. It's a tough situation. Warriors seem to have figured something out with Trace Jackson Davis too. A lot of the lineups are pretty good. I have a pretty strong feeling. I think Warriors are going to take on the loser of Pels Lakers for the 8th seed.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in the Kings at this point. I think they're kind of done. I'd like the Warriors to be able to advance, so that's my pick for that matchup. I think it's going to be not necessarily a blowout or anything like that, but I think they've got an edge over the Sacramento team.
Bulls Hawks on Wednesday. At, by the way, 8:30 Central Time is the tip-off of that game. It's brutal. Hawks fans going to have to watch their team at 9:30 on a Wednesday. I don't necessarily think that game matters. There's been like some talk of like, hey, could the Bulls beat the Heat? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm pretty skeptical of Chicago pulling it off. But I will ask you this: the big one, though, you as host of Locked On Heat, which you can check out wherever you get podcasts. How do you feel about Sixers Heat?
You know, we were talking about it before we started recording. I have no idea what version of this Miami team is going to show up. I will say the hallmark of this season has been their inconsistency. They've gone through a lot of injuries. They've fielded 38 different starting lineups, a franchise record for them. I don't know. Jimmy's been talking a lot in media, and that is something that we've seen from him in the past. I don't think it always works out well. I like how much public belief he has in his team, but I also don't know if this team is equipped to stop either Tyrese Maxey or Joel Embiid. And that being the case, I'm not sure what to expect on Wednesday. I don't want that to sound like a cop-out, but I just think there's a lot of different factors. Like Bam has to play the best defensive game of his life in order to limit Embiid. I don't think Miami has anybody who can stop Maxey, because we've seen him, like, maybe they can force him to shoot from the outside. Maybe they can kind of get him off the 3-point line a little bit. And he's been so deadly from the mid-range. They don't have a body on that roster who can stay in front of him. And he's been killing him. He'll get 30 points on Wednesday if they can't find a way to limit. I don't know. Is DeLon Wright an option? He's barely played for Miami. And other than that, Kelly Oubre has been like a huge X factor. Like nobody thinks about him, but he's been a really impactful guy. He's come sliding on the baseline. He's open from the corner with deadly 3-point attempts on that short corner. Like there's a lot of potential there from Philadelphia to just really rock Miami. Having said that, who knows? Maybe Terry Rozier goes off. That's why they acquired him. Maybe Jimmy Butler and playoff Jimmy actually show up, but he hasn't been here all season long. We haven't seen that steady and slow increase in his production the way we have in years past. And I've been wondering this for a while, but I think this season has really shown it more than anything, as age finally caught up with Jimmy Butler. And it's starting to seem that might be the case. Does he have another big run in him like way he did last year? We'll see.
For more on that game, you can check out Locked On Heat with David Ramil and Wes Goldberg. My quick thoughts are Bam is going to have to score in this game. They're not going to win I think that he can win most games by dragging games into the mud and winning these ugly, nightmarish, what is this? Oh God, offense to all basketball sensibilities games. I don't think you can do it versus the Sixers. They got too much firepower. If you're going to win this game, you're going to have to get some offense. Duncan Robinson's going to have a big game. Tyler Hero's going to have a big game. And Bam Adebayo is going to have a big game. Like
Duncan might not even play on Wednesday.
Yeah. Duncan not playing that is a very underrated. He has been phenomenal this year. Like I would have him on most improved. That's how good I think Duncan has been this year. Him not playing would be really big in that matchup. You can catch reaction to those games on Wednesday or on Thursday, and reaction to the West games on Wednesday here on Locked On NBA. Up next, we got some offseason news to get to in Detroit, plus Grayson Allen gets the bag. We'll talk about that up next on Locked On NBA. Dave, I've been told I'm pretty competitive. You think that's true?
Yeah, I could see that from you.
Well, I've got a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. You can charge them rent on iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. But now you can also rob their vaults of riches for yourself. And the leaderboards show you who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. It's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. We'll be right back on Locked On NBA. It's Locked On NFL's mock draft live on April 17th at 7 Eastern, streaming on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on April 17th at 7 Eastern to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL mock draft on April 17th at 7 Eastern, streaming live on Locked On Sports Today 24 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Final segment here with David Ramil on a Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. David, while we were recording, it was actually, there's been a little bit of development on the story. So there were rumors on Monday morning that the Pistons might move on from Troy Weaver as head of basketball operations. Shams Charania of The Athletic tweeting just before you and I went on air, Weaver's not gone, but after a disappointing 14-68 season, that's certainly one way to put it, the Detroit Pistons have decided to hire a new head of basketball operations president and will begin their search process this week. So, like, this doesn't mean that Troy Weaver is gone. It just means that he's, like, being transitioned, at least at this point. This is pretty common. They don't like fire anybody anymore. Like, no one gets fired in the NBA. They just move to like different roles in the organization. Steve Clifford doesn't get fired as coach. He just gets moved to the front office. Dwayne Casey, who the Athletic lists as a potential candidate to take over as president of basketball operations, left the team as coach, but didn't leave the team, just like transitioned to front office. I don't know where Troy Weaver goes. Like, you can't really transition from front office up, but he'll be around in some degree. It might be one of those where it's like, yeah, he's technically around, but no longer has any power. They're definitely looking in a different direction. The big impact here for me is like, this is so much of this is about Monty Williams. That's what so much about this of this question is to me, with Monty on pace for so much money, guaranteed. After he said no the first time, and they were like, no. What if we pay you like more money than God? And then Monty's like, okay. And clearly, like, it was a bad fit this season. Monty, I think, is a good coach and can do better next year. The problem is when you look at Detroit, like, I don't know what the path is. They might have a black swan event in the draft, David. That's the only real way that this can happen for them, is like if the one diamond in what looks like a really rough draft winds up in Detroit, okay, that black swan event can alter everything. But the short-term future for the Detroit Pistons is pretty bleak. So finding a candidate to take over this job, I think, is going to be pretty tough.
Well, I think they'll find plenty of candidates. I don't know how right they'll be for the position. And there is, first of all, I hate the idea of Weaver staying around. That never works. Like, you cannot have dissenting voices. You have to have a clarity of purpose as a franchise, and that's something that Detroit has lacked for too long. Like, I don't know what direction they're going in. The front office, the coaching, the players, they don't know what the hell they're doing. And that's a problem. You've got to be able to have an idea of where you are in terms of your rebuild, or what your next steps are, what the goals are, something that you're actively working towards. And I like what you pointed out about Monty, because Monty is a coach that needs a fully developed team. He is not the guy to watch youngins go out there and try and figure it out. That's not his ideal role. There are other coaches for that, but you don't have to pay them, as you said, ungodly amounts of money in order to hire them. So they've had a disconnect between what they're all doing at every level. And I don't know that the right person is going to come in there and say, you know what, this is where we are. Let's start building from that point forward to where we want to be in X amount of time. And so that's problematic, is that you're going to have all these different voices, all these different pathways, and none of them are going to be clear. I think for them, there's a way where they can achieve some success, where they can, let's say, make appropriate trades, get a star level player that's going to be the face of the franchise. Because I don't know that Cade's right there. I don't know that he'll ever be there. That's not a knock on him, by the way. I don't want Pistons fans coming at me like Rockets fans did years ago. I just think they need somebody to provide that kind of leadership on the court, as well as a vision off the court that's heading in the same direction. And if they can find that player, whoever that might be, available via the trade, then I think that's more important than whatever they might be able to get in the drafts, because they're not going to be able to get that talent from this year's draft that's going to take them to the next level.
I'm not selling Cade stock. Hanging on.
Fair. No, I think he's a great player. I just don't know that he's the leader that's going to take this team into playoff contention.
Elsewhere, Grayson Allen gets a new deal from the Suns, 4 years, $70 million. Actually a pretty affordable price for Grayson Allen given his market. He was one of the best shooters in the NBA this season. The lineups with Grayson Allen next to Kevin Durant and Yusuf Nurkic were absolutely incredible. He's a big reason why they were able to stay above water given their injury problems for Devin Booker and Bradley Beal this season. Is Allen was absolutely incredible in shooting and keeping them kind of held up. So big get for them in terms of locking this up. They couldn't risk losing Allen. Like they had to get this deal done.
Right.
My question, David, is if they don't beat the Wolves, you have like, this is a mercurial setup here, not to play on the Phoenix Mercury, but this is a combustible situation in large part just because, like, look, Kevin Durant has flipped teams in 2019 and then 2023. Like there's been like a lot of shuffling around by Kevin Durant, and going back to this season in December, there was like, hey, Kevin Durant is like unhappy with the Suns. And you're going to be, the answer will be like, well, yeah, but they made the playoffs and they're doing well. Sure. I never really think that. I don't think it's about that. I don't think players look at it the same way. The Suns had to do this because they couldn't not do it. But I do wonder about committing this kind of money, locking yourself in further when you don't know what the future is going to look like. Now, I think Grayson at 17 per, you can probably move him if you had to later. And maybe they don't have to. Maybe they win a title and this is like the championship core. Entirely possible. But it is just kind of like an interesting case of how these teams now get stuck with where the cap is at of, we can't lose this guy. So we have to further limit our already compromised flexibility because we cannot risk losing them. It makes it really tough on front offices.
Yeah, it's a short-term goal, a short-term vision in terms of being executed and contending for a title. I still think it's the right move, at least for now, until we see Anthony Edwards pick and roll down Grayson Allen's throat to death in the next series. Well, that's going to be an interesting one. You do what you can to keep this core together for as long as you can. Tomorrow's problem is tomorrow's problem for a team that's looking to contend and sees themselves as a potential title winner this year and maybe for another couple of seasons. So I think it's probably the right approach. Again, at least there's an idea of who they are as a team. Maybe that on-court identity is still a little bit in flux, but in terms of, just in sharp contrast to what we were talking about Detroit, like I think this team knows that they want to contend and they're making the right moves, at least as they see them, the necessary moves, to your point, in order to lock up a contending core for the next couple of seasons.
All right, it's going to do it for Locked On NBA. Thanks for joining us for more on Heat Sixers. Make sure to check out David and Wes over on Locked On Heat. If you want to get reactions to whoever the Nuggets will play in the first round, you can check out Locked On Nuggets. Appreciate you guys being with us. Keep it here all week for more reactions to offseason breaking news, as well as previewing and reacting to play-in tournament games and the NBA playoffs, which begin this weekend. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next time on Locked On NBA.